Not sure if you can hear me, but I think it's muted.
Only,
Oh, it's gone now.
There you are.
all right, so fixed asset turnover is how well the company is doing investing in their property, plant, and equipment, their buildings, machinery. And so it's something we could evaluate whoever makes that decision, whether it's the CFO or a controller. They make decisions to purchase a building, purchase equipment, and we can evaluate how effective their investment decisions on fixed assets are. So we calculate this by net sales divided by average fixed assets. When we say average, we just mean beginning plus ending divided by 2. So you know how you look on like a balance sheet and you'll see like the total property, plant, and equipment, and you'll see beginning and ending. So the average would just be adding them together and dividing by 2. Pretty simple. Questions on that? Okay. So how well are we investing in buildings, land, fixed assets to help our company earn revenue? All right, so I just wanted to cover that. All right, let's do the Kahoot. I'll pull it up. I think overall today's class compared to last time is going to be a piece of cake.
I'm sorry.
Did you I don't know, did you guys take a look at what I posted on Canvas? I posted the problem set in a much cleaner format. And I also posted the solution.
I was gonna spend the weekend on it. I hadn't really checked it yet.
There will be enough time today that I'm pretty sure we're going to get out early today. So if people want to stay after and go over that stuff.
We heard that before.
No, it's going down. Okay, it's going down.
It's like every time that he says it,
You're being recorded, Jasmine, just so you know.
He jinxes himself, and then like we get like 5 minutes. And then
Extra.
Like, oh.
5 is early.
He's like,
From what planet is 5 not early?
This one,
I promise you, it's gonna be easy day.
look at it, 20 early, like a 30-minute class.
you promised y'all heard that.
Hope I get a cool thing. Take it. It's kind of weird.
Where's the volume? You know we gotta have the volume. I don't know.
You have your thing right this.
All right, is everybody in? Yeah, you already did it, right, Brett?
You can have this if you need to. Be nice. Oh man, that's gonna be horrible. Scares me. Get too small.
Yeah, expense R&D. That's the general rule of thumb, right? Yeah, you can, once you reach that point of technological feasibility, you can capitalize, but not before. Yeah, if you pay someone else to help you with R&D, it's expensed. But if you buy somebody else's R&D, then you can capitalize it. Okay. All right, so good job, good job. So let's get out of there. I think I want to use the whiteboard for a second and let's just review a couple of things from the slides before we get into the problem set. All right, so first thing, what's our rule of thumb with R&D?
Expense it till
Expense.
it's feasible, whatever you call it.
What do you think companies feel about that? Like, what about like a pharmaceutical company? They have a lot of R&D?
As a general rule, it's probably really expensive.
Yep. A lot of money goes into developing those drugs, right? So, do you think they're happy about just expensing all of it? No, right? Yeah. So, because they might argue what? What would their argument be? Yeah, we're spending all this money on clinical trials. We're spending all this money on developing drugs. We're spending all this money on basic scientific research. And sure, not all of it is going to result in a positive drug, but some of it will, right? So a lot of this research that we're doing has a future benefit. So a lot of, there's a lot of parties, pharmaceutical companies, other R&D heavy companies that would want to see this rule amended and see some way to capitalize research and development costs. What accounting principle can we point to justify the fact that we're expensing R&D costs? So in accounting, we are generally, okay, GAAP, but there's an accounting principle. So we're generally conservative. So because of that, we err on the side of caution, right? And also objectivity. How can we objectively say how much of this R&D will result in a finished product, right? So the rule of thumb is just to expense R&D costs. So we talked about this point of technological, and you said you and Marcus were talking about this point, technological feasibility. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that this originally, it was originally adopted with software development cost, and later it was expanded, or at least the terminology started being used in other situations. The rule of thumb is, so when we're talking about software development costs, before this point, what do? Expense. After? Capitalize. R&D costs, so software development costs, when have we hit technological feasibility with software?
You got a program.
Well, yes.
Looks like it could be successful.
Yeah, it looks like it could be successful. In programming, it wouldn't mean you actually have to have written the code, like the actual code that's going to run the program, but you would have to have planned it out such that you know all the requirements. You know, it's kind of like an outline for a paper, right? As far as when we're talking.
Be more like a prototype, like you got one that's somewhat built.
Well, in software and programming, you don't really necessarily need the actual, all the code written to have a prototype. They do what's called pseudocode beforehand. And, you know, if you're a real like experienced programmer, you can tell, okay, this is going to go. But if there's some, you know, like let's say they need to connect to a certain server and they're not sure they could do it, or they need a certain data and they're not sure if they could get it, then they haven't reached that point of technological feasibility. But like you said, prototype, they're sure it's going to go. They're sure from here on out, it's just a matter of building it and going forward. Then you've hit that point of technological feasibility.
About like a drug company, since you brought it up.
Yeah, so a drug
Does it go to
company.
clinical trials or
Yes.
after?
Yeah, it would be after the clinical trials. Yeah, then you would know that you're approved by the FDA. It's going to go. Yeah.
For pharmaceuticals, wouldn't it be when you're ready to essentially market it?
Well, you'd be ready. I believe you'd be ready to market after your clinical trials, right? So, yeah, essentially,
Right.
after the clinical trials, you have approval from the FDA. Then you're pretty much ready to go, and you can start capitalizing those costs. All right, so you see this idea of technological feasibility. Like I said, I believe the terminology was originally developed with sophomore development costs and then adopted elsewhere. So yeah, like you said, with other products other than software development costs, you think of it like a prototype. You get that prototype ready, and now you can start capitalizing those costs of developing, you know, many of them, right? If it's a cyber truck, it would become inventory, right? We also saw this come into play with respect to. So I threw one of the trickier ones on the quiz was, okay, if we pay contractors in our R&D, according to the quiz, we do what with that?
Expensive.
Yeah, we expense. We expense those costs. So maybe we're developing some software and we want to optimize the code. We want it to run faster. So we contract with an expert who's an expert at optimizing code, making it run faster, pay them. That's going to be expensed as R&D, right? They're helping us develop our product. Or a pharmaceutical, maybe we have in-house scientists, but we also pay other scientists that have a particular expertise in this area. So that's us paying other people to help us develop our R&D, and those costs are expensed. But if we purchase R&D from another company,
Capitalize it.
we capitalize it. Okay, capitalize those costs. So it's not necessarily, I would say the reason we can justify this is not so much because it's less conservative, but because it's definitely more objective. We can say we paid this much for this asset, and so we capitalize it. It's kind of like what we saw with trademarks and patents, right? If we develop it, we can only capitalize the legal cost, but if we buy it from somebody else, we can capitalize the whole thing, right? Because we can point and say, hey, we paid that amount for that asset. So, and then one other thing we saw with purchased R&D, we saw this idea of technological feasibility again, because there was developed R&D. And this would be, we're buying the prototype, right? We're buying the rights to the prototype. We're buying the rights to either the finished software or the software where all the requirements and the code structure is done. And so for developed R&D, it's amortized. It's a finite life intangible asset. Someone's been beaten up on this here marker.
Wait, tell me again what you're trying to write.
Finite life
Life.
Thank you.
intangible
Like
asset.
or something.
Probably be better with my finger.
Yeah, there's something wrong with that thing.
So that's for developed R&D, meaning again, this is again that idea of technological feasibility. We're buying the prototype. If it's in process, so this would be like we're buying some trials that a pharmaceutical company has done on a drug, but the drug has not reached the point where it's ready to be marketed, where it's passed through its clinical trials. If that's the case, so I'll just put no technological feasibility. And in that case, it's an indefinite life intangible asset. So just changes, basically what that just changes is like, if we buy this, we start amortizing it right away. If we buy the indefinite life intangible asset, we don't start amortizing it right away. We check it for impairment. So that's almost all I wanted to say about R&D. All right, so I think we can go to the problem set now. So go to your problem set. Go to brief exercise 10.9. Let's look at it together. Ten 19, I'm sorry. And this should say, this got cut off, so you can tack on R&D at the end here. All right. So go ahead and we buddy up in this class, Brad. So go ahead and buddy up and work on 10.19. So go through those and talk about what's expensed and what's capitalized or not expensed. Yeah. Jasmine, why don't you go sit next to Brett? Y'all can talk about it.
Like contract.
I didn't.
I like to make people feel
for Big Mom
awkward.
today, but I have it on my things.
The second last one's like a contractor, right?
Yes.
We're talking about the patent stuff.
Hmm?
I remember talking about the patent stuff.
We didn't talk about how you can handle a patent.
Yeah, no, earlier, but on this, it's different.
Yeah, earlier. It's the same.
Same, okay. Can't capitalize unless you bought it. If you did the patent, this is expensive. The utilities, the depreciation. I don't understand.
All right, did we figure it out? All right, let's go over it. So we're looking for the R&D expense. Salaries.